Good evening. My name is Kevin Whitcher, and I am hosting the ninth edition of the Old Git Gooners podcast. Now, for this particular episode, I made a deliberate decision to ensure we were true to our name of being Old Gits by quite specifically inviting three old gits older than this old git, which is quite unusual because I normally have one or two younger people on the panel, but it's nice to feel like the youthful one for a change. And what I'm going to do is basically my normal brief introduction, but I'm going to change it a tiny bit because of the vintage of our learned guests, as you will find out. So I'm going to start with Peter LeBeau, who wrote for me regularly while I was editing the Gooner. Wrote, I believe, quite regularly for Mike Francis before I was editing the Gooner, and I think still contributes occasionally, Peter, to the Gooner. Is that right?
Yeah, got a regular series on the rivalry between Arsenal and Tottenham. So still running, yeah.
Oh, wonderful stuff. So
Not been sacked yet.
What's that?
Not been sacked yet, yeah.
Well, there we are. So, you're not managing a football team, so I think you're on safer ground. However, this is where it gets interesting because I'm going to ask you, Peter, to just tell me what the first Arsenal match you attended in the flesh was.
The first match I attended in the flesh was in April 1961. It was in black and white. Now it was actually a day that Stanley Matthews played at Highbury for the last time. My dad took me specifically for that reason, I think. And it was a end of season dreadful game. Arsenal won 1-0, but it was still an incredible buzz for I think I was 9 or 10 then, and yeah, I remember that much better than I remember a lot of the thousands of games in between. But yeah, so it was April 1961.
Wonderful. Well, that's something to beat, and we will find out. I suspect we might have a winner elsewhere, but time will tell. But next, I'm going to go to Steve Killick, who used to write occasionally for me, especially in my earlier days as editor. Made a brief comeback, I discovered on just checking for my Arsene Wenger special in 2018. He did the 96-97 season, I think, for me. He is a hack in a way. He's an old style journo. I had the pleasure of meeting him in the flesh in a pub in Camden Town many years ago, and I now enjoy his occasional tweets about northeastern Italy because I love that part of the world as well. So it's a warm welcome to Steve Killick. And Steve, I've got to ask you the same question. First Arsenal match in the flesh.
Well, my game was in colour. It was September 1965, and Arsenal beat Manchester United 4-2. As we often get let down by our team, that was one of those seasons. But nonetheless, I saw them win 4-2. Joe Baker, my then hero, scored, who Billy Wright dropped in January after a 3-0 defeat to Blackburn. I've just about recovered from it.
Wonderful.
That was quite something, though, that 3-0 defeat at Blackburn. I don't know what I would have done as the manager. But,
well, Billy dropped Eastham and Joe Baker.
Yeah, right.
After that game. Yeah. And I remember my dad, who was not a fan of Billy's, who was trying to get me to go to the Arsenal since I was old enough to walk, basically. But always being a bit of a wimp, I delayed. But I got there in the end. And he said to me that morning, son, if we lose at Blackburn this afternoon, that bloke Wright's just about daft enough to drop Eastham and Baker. And he did just that.
He did, yes.
Yeah, it was an FA Cup game as well, wasn't it? We went out the FA Cup.
Third round of the FA Cup.
Yeah, there was no
Blackburn were bottom of the league.
Yeah,
and we'd beaten them previously. But, I remember reading a report on it saying the Blackburn manager had said, I feel sorry for Billy Wright. The players just weren't doing it, but why not blame Billy Wright? Players were good players.
Oh, we had a very talented set of forwards. We just had a pretty tough defence, but we had Jim Fennell in goal, which didn't help.
Right, I'm going to stop because at some point we have to get on to the 21st century. But before that, I will introduce our final member of the panel, which is a learned scholar. I must confess, I can't recall if you're a professor or a teacher, but I know you came.
Just a teacher.
Just a teacher. However, what you were is a master of correcting the language of some of my contributors, because you used to proof for me for many a season, and for which I am eternally grateful, and occasionally invited you to have a meal, which normally you couldn't make, but once or twice you popped in and said hello, and was able to see you in the flesh then.
Yeah, I was living up in Cumbria.
Indeed.
Most of the time we're talking about.
So it's a warm welcome to Mr. Tony Porter, also known as Microsoft Windows 8 for his Zoom calls. But Tony, I'm going to ask you, and I think you might be trumping our other guests here, for your first Arsenal in the flesh match.
Oh, yes. November 1950. I was 8, and my father took me for my first visit to Highbury. Arsenal 5, Sunderland 1. It was 1-1 at half time, and I expressed some displeasure to my father, and he said, "Oh, it's all right. They've had a good look at them. You'll watch in the second half." A chap called Lishman scored 4 goals that afternoon. But the red shirts, the green grass. England, Britain was a pretty boring place in 1950, but that afternoon was colourful.
And so presumably you have a relatively decent memory of, we won the FA Cup and the league in the 3 years after that, is that right?
Yes, that's right. I can't really remember. The FA Cup final was, of course, on something called television. But I did watch it, but I can't remember very much about it, except the ball nestling in the back of the net at one point.
Right. Okay.
And yes, the league, that was the final day success, wasn't it? In fact, a friend of mine who's even older than me rang me the other evening and said he skived off school to go and watch Arsenal play Burnley in the final game of the season. We won 3-2 and won the league by some sort of decimal point from Preston North End.
So was the game like in a midweek afternoon?
Yeah, that's right. The final game of the season.
Wow.
And it must have been in April. I should have looked up the date.
No, you weren't prepared for this, Tony, but all I will say is Sky Sports obviously wouldn't have been happy. But
no, he got away with it. I don't think anybody punished him for missing school either.
Oh, well, there you go. It was.
If I might just interject, Kevin, I in a conversation I had many years afterwards with my dad, sort of found out to his great embarrassment that I think I was conceived on the night that we beat Liverpool to win the FA Cup in 1950. I had a very red-faced mother, and I just did the maths afterwards, and it does work. So, yeah, I had a real cause for celebration about that result.
Perhaps your father might not have been in such a good mood. Who's to say?
yeah. If Reg Lewis had missed, I might well not be here. You know,
This is it. These moments of fate.
Sliding doors. Yeah.
We are going to move now, fast forwarding to 2026. And firstly, the reason that this podcast is being recorded on a Tuesday rather than a Thursday, which is because, of course, we are playing Liverpool on Thursday evening. So anyone who I would be inviting to be on this particular panel is going to be otherwise occupied on Thursday. So we're doing it 2 days early, but we've had... it's actually been over 2 weeks since our last podcast because of Christmas. And since then, for the record, Arsenal have beaten Everton away. They've beaten Palace at home in the Carabao Cup quarter-final. They have won against Brighton and Villa at home. And then, obviously, last Saturday evening, beat Bournemouth 3-2. So, gentlemen, my first question on the recent run is that Arsenal had a little bit of a run in October, November, where opposition teams weren't even getting shots on target. So our chances of conceding goals were pretty slim. However, something seems to have been changing a little because they are now going in and Arsenal are quite often winning matches by a single goal. Is this a concern or is it back to the norm? I mean, you know, football matches tend to see goals. It was a bit of a fluke that Arsenal didn't seem to concede any for about 6 or 7 games. Peter, how are you feeling about Arsenal's defending at this point in time?
Well, I mean, the run you referred to back in October and November was because we weren't even conceding many chances. We had about 3 games. It was around about the time we played Fulham away, and some quite good sides weren't even having a shot at goal. You know that, in the statistics, they were saying not only did Arsenal not concede, but they didn't actually concede any shots at goal. So I think it's unrealistic to expect that to happen. We've also then had, like everybody's having at the moment, injuries, and the injury to Gabriel and Saliba has sort of disrupted that partnership, and we've had to sort of mix and match a little bit in defence, and we lost right against Villa. I mean, we conceded the goal against Villa in the very, very last minute, and it was a bit of a catalogue of errors, and it didn't really matter, but the sort of other goals that we've given away have been a little bit more worrying. But I think we're probably so good defensively that any sort of slips are perhaps magnified. And I think we saw that on Saturday at Bournemouth with, Gabriel has been an outstanding defender, but that was a terrible mistake. But I'm not desperately worried. I prefer always never to concede. But, even if we do make defensive mistakes, we've got a pretty good goalkeeper behind us anyway. So, I feel that we're still stronger defensively than any other team in the league at the moment.
Yeah, we are currently, I believe, have the best record, but there are some supporters who have started getting a little bit nervy and concerned, and I suppose that really came to the fore against Wolves when we sat back and invited them almost to equalise. Steve, are you basically of a nervous disposition when you're watching the team a goal up in the last 10 minutes?
I tend to get more nervous listening to Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville than I do with the current side. I think this is the strongest Arsenal squad I've ever seen. I mean, as very much, the young kid on the block with Microsoft and Peter here tonight. I've never seen a stronger squad than this. I mean, we lost against Villa, if I recall, with Nketiah and Timber as centre backs, and we lost by a goal. We've lost twice this season. Manchester City have lost 4. Our closest rivals. What do we have? Saliba and Nketiah, Calafiore. These are changes that are going to affect all sides. But I mean, I can't think of any other side. There's talk of Manchester City going out and signing Guay that can boast the strength that we have. I mean, we have won these games. Okay, we lost against Villa in the last minute. We conceded, and other games, Wolves was disappointing, but we've had shocking Decembers in the past under Wenger and still gone on to win things. We've had shocking Novembers equally under Wenger and gone on to win things. We haven't had a shocking December, so I'm very sanguine.
Okay, anything to add on that, Tony?
No, I think that's an important point about the strength of the squad. When you think Miles Lewis-Skelly can't get a regular game, and yet last season he was outstanding. So the fact
and capped for England, just to interrupt, Tony.
Capped for England as well. And so he's there in the wings. No, I think they'll be all right, won't they? But Arsenal do like to put you through it. Over the years, there haven't been many seasons where they've strolled away with prizes.
Okay. I'm going to ask about your thoughts on the left-back position. Now you've mentioned Miles Lewis-Skelly. Because obviously Calafiori is a little bit in and out with his injury record. Do you think it's possible that our first choice left-back will remain Calafiori, or do you think Hincapié might actually usurp him in Mikel Arteta's thoughts? I want to go to you first, Steve.
I am a huge fan of Calafiori, apart from the fact that, like so many players these days, he does seem to veer towards the brittle, but that's probably down to the workload these guys get, and additionally in training, because they've got to do some training between all this, the workload of the games they have. I think he's an outstanding player. I think certainly the young lad Lewis-Skelly is an outstanding prospect. I mean, he burst onto the scene last season, and we thought, where did we find this kid? I like Calafiori. Basically, I like big, strong teams, and I think Wenger's great side was a big side. I'm a big fan of Calafiori. I think he offers something exceptional. I don't think on his day there's a bit of Tommy Gemmell about Calafiori and in Gemmell's great rampaging days at Celtic. He excites me. I think Lewis-Skelly is an outstanding talent, and I think in providing we can keep hold of him, because if he's not getting regular football, he's going to get restless, irrespective of the morale that we seem to have built up at the club. I would like to establish the fact that Calafiori would be my first choice. I have not seen enough on television to make a decision. Hincapié seems very solid, but I haven't seen a fullback like Calafiori for many a long day.
That's very good.
All right, for our younger listeners, I'm going to mention that Tommy Gemmell won the European Cup in 1967. So hopefully that's a bit of an omen in terms of Steve's comparison. For our even younger listeners, the European Cup is a trophy that was beautiful, and it's now been bastardized in its name to something called the Champions League. But
I would add that Tommy Gemmell against the Catenaccio that Inter Milan were playing that day in Portugal scored a most outstanding goal coming off the wing to equalise for Celtic against Inter Milan. And I remember watching that in flickering black and white as a youngster. And as I said, Calafiori is the nearest thing I've seen to Gemmell.
And that was in the days when the European Cup final was played in a midweek afternoon at around 3 o'clock something.
Yes, happy days.
Tony, do you have a preference at left back yourself?
Well, I'd go along very much. I knew nothing about Calafiori before we signed him, and I'm most impressed. Very talented, very creative player, isn't he? And obviously he fits into the way that Arteta wants his fullbacks to play. No, he's good. He must be to have got where he's got this season, because the competition is strong, which is going back to what we were just saying about the depth of the squad.
And he can defend. I mean, when you think of Zinchenko, when he came into the side, this inverted fullback role, he is an extremely talented footballer, but a little like Lewis Skelly, I see a midfield player in Zinchenko. I ultimately see a midfield player in Lewis Skelly. I see an outstanding left back, Calafiori, and a young lad in Capier who can fill in positions across the back four.
Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was chatting about the left back role the other day with people, and we went back and mentioned Kieran Tierney. And I love Tierney as a player. I thought he was a super player, and I think he was very popular among Arsenal fans. Though he was again very brittle. And then Zinchenko came in and displaced him. And people said, well, of course, the thing is about Tierney, he's just a left back, isn't he? Whereas Zinchenko pops up in midfield and does all sorts of things. If you look at the sort of way that both Timber and Calafiori play, they pop up all over the field. I mean, Calafiori, he had a goal disallowed. He had an incredible goal disallowed against Fulham. I mean, it would be probably goal of the season if it had been allowed. And he was just popping up on the edge of the area, and the game was at that time a stalemate. Timber is regularly appearing in all sorts of places all over the pitch. So Arteta has envisaged the fullback role and made it very creative. Sometimes it scares the heck out of you to see your right back in the other team's penalty area when the other team are attacking. But it does give you opportunities to score goals that you probably wouldn't score in other situations. And probably because of the need to be as mobile and versatile as that, we probably will see different sorts of players playing in those positions. I think I agree with Steve. We're very, very well served now. We've got a number of players. I mean, we've got Ben White who could play at right back. Timber can play left back as well. He's that good.
Ben White would walk into any other side in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Yep.
And would play for England if he wanted to.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's move further up the field, because it's been interesting last couple of games. Gabriel Jesus is on active duty. He's come on as sub in the Premier League matches, but Mikel Arteta has stuck with Viktor Gyokeres. I mean, it's difficult to imagine. I think Gabriel Jesus did start the actual Carabao Cup game from memory. So he's capable of starting the match in terms of match fitness. Do you have any thoughts on why Arteta is not experimenting, shall we say, with Gabriel Jesus in the started lineup in the league matches and retaining Gyokeres? Because the general view is Gyokeres doesn't add a lot to the team. Now, you might disagree with this, but I'm going to go round and ask. So I'm going to start with Peter on this one.
Yeah, Gyokeres is the player I have most concern about. We did incredibly well in the summer, signing eight players. Berta did an incredible job. Of those 8 players, the one that I think has made least impact is Gyokeres. When he got that goal in the Leeds game. I remember the chap sitting next to me at the time in the North Bank said to me, "We were here when he got his first goal and the first of many," but I can't remember him even coming close to getting a goal like that again. He's got a couple of penalties. He's got a couple of close range goals, but he got a close range header at Burnley. But his hold up play is nowhere near as good as I feel it should be. His first touch is not impressive. He's not, though he looks like a big unit, he's not particularly strong, and he's not particularly fast, and he's not great in the air. I mean, I don't. Those are all assets. It's quite useful to have as a striker, and if you compare him with the people who he's in competition with, and you have to include Mourinho in that now, they've all got real assets. I mean, when Havertz comes back, Havertz is a much better player than Gyokeres, but he's probably not got that sort of goal passion that Gyokeres exhibited. But then if you look at the show reel of the goals that Gyokeres got in Portugal, they were all very similar goals, and you just wonder whether he would have got those goals against Premier League defenders in England. From what I've seen so far, I think the answer is no. And just on your point, Kevin, about Gabriel Jesus, I think Arteta is just being very cautious with him because of the amount of time he was out with the ligament injury. I think he's been very careful.
Okay, Steve, do you concur with that?
No, I like Gyokeres. Again, you will have to explain this to younger listeners. He reminds me of a souped-up Bobby Gould, and the one thing he does do is he busts his gut. He takes defenders on. And for so long, I've been watching Arsenal pass the ball about like a game of chess. We go wide, then we bring it back into the midfield, then we go wide again, then we bring it back into the midfield. Gyokeres offers us the option, and admittedly, as Peter says, he's nowhere near the footballer that Havertz is, or has the athleticism and dainty play that Jesus has. But I think he can do a job. And I think if you're in a side and having to defend, someone's got to defend against Gyokeres. So as Declan Rice said, I mean, I know these interviews are basically the bland leading the bland, but he did say that two defenders are constantly taking on Gyokeres. He may be a bull in a china shop, but I think he's a very valuable addition to the side. I wouldn't have him as possibly a regular starter, and I think when you go to games, away games, particularly against lower league side, side teams lower down the division, I would look for somewhere with more craft, someone like Havertz. But I think that when you play many sides, certainly against Liverpool, I'd have Gyokeres charging around, causing as much carnage as possible, and keeping Virgil van Dijk very busy.
Mm. Okay, so it's interesting you said a souped up Bobby Gould. I mean, I wouldn't say that Bobby Gould's career was stellar, but I know I loved his attitude, and I still remember him scoring against Swindon at Wembley. But
one highlight of the day.
One highlight of the day. But the player that he does remind me of a bit is Malcolm McDonald. Who, I mean, he's very left-footed, McDonald, but he was a guy who just lived to sort of, break through defences, and he was, physically very strong and very quick.
And Supermac was good in the air too.
And he was very good in it. He was a natural goal scorer, and he did, even though he was injured a lot of his time with us, he still played on. He got a lot of goals for us.
Yeah.
I hope you're right about. I mean, we all want Gyokeres to succeed. I'd love him to succeed. I just haven't seen the stuff so far.
I'm hoping, as we all do, that he actually improves. I mean, it's a big ask at 27. I mean, he's suddenly not going to become a touch player. You know, I mean, one of the best centre forwards I've seen at the Arsenal all my time there is Alan Smith, you could basically fire a cannonball at Smithy and he'd bring it under control, and he could score when he was up front with Merson before Wrighty arrived. You know, 2 golden boots. Well, I think Ian Wright only got 1, but. Gyokeres is not in that league, but there's not many centre forwards around like Alan Smith these days. All we have is Haaland at Man City, and I can't think of many. Well, look at what Sesko has failed to achieve at Manchester United. I mean, thank Christ we didn't get him.
Tony,
Bobby Gould is a name to remember. You're right, and again, he was bought for similar reasons, because we weren't scoring goals, and he scored quite a few goals for Coventry, but he didn't score that many goals for us. I mean, we've tried this with several players. Some was he called Chapman?
Oh, God, yeah, from Stoke.
Lee Chapman, yeah.
Best thing about him was his wife.
Yeah.
She
played on the wing. Yeah.
Every so often the club invests in somebody. In the case of MacDonald, then they got what they wanted, and he was a real asset. But there have been various people who we brought in. But I was also thinking, I think it was against Forest, wasn't it? A chap called Calafiori chipped the ball over down the left wing for Gyokeres, and he collected it and went on and blasted a goal. Was it against Forest?
No, that was against Leeds. In the Leeds in the first home game, he got a very good goal there, and we just thought that's the first of many. He did score against Forest, but it was a ball across the area from Eze.
Yes.
Off his thigh,
it was a good finish.
That one.
But it was Calafiori, wasn't it, who set him free down that wing?
Yeah.
And like you were saying with Calafiori, an outstanding player.
I think Gyokeres is really one thing we haven't had for many a long moon, which is a Route 1 player.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Well, let's just have a bit of an overview here, and we've been quite fortunate in terms of our immediate co-challengers for the title dropping points over the Christmas New Year period, and it's given Arsenal a 6-point lead they're currently enjoying. Now, last season it was a bit of a procession, really. After about January in the league, Liverpool looked fairly safe. They always seem to have a margin. They seem to generally win their matches, and it never got tense. It never got exciting. The bookies have decided that Arsenal are a pretty good bet, because they're 3-1 on to win, with Man City at 3-1 against. So basically a 9 in 10 chance of an Arsenal title as opposed to a 1 in 10 for City, with Villa at 25-1, the next team in the pecking order. I'm going to ask you to predict quite simply, is this going to be a procession, or is this actually going to get sticky? Is it going to be a bit of a to and froer, whereby Arsenal actually, the lead gets a little bit narrower? They may even be overtaken. It gets very tense and very stressful. I mean, obviously we'd like the procession, but what's your gut feeling about this season? Let's start with Steve.
If we win at Manchester City, it'll be a procession.
Well, that's very late.
Well, I think we should win the league this year. Traditionally, our club has always struggled against the lower sides, and they've always let us down against last season, for example. Did we lose home to West Ham? I can't see that happening this year. We've got a lot of home games. I think we'll beat Liverpool. And If it's a possession, it will be a delight. When was the last time we had that? Probably when we beat Manchester United at Highbury, when Liverpool lost against Nottingham Forest that day, and we were sort of clear through to Flagstaff. If any side is going to give us squeaky bum time, as Alex Ferguson used to say, it's the Arsenal. But I look at that side and I can't, unless we have 3 or 4 major injuries. I mean, if Declan Rice has anything seriously wrong with him, I'd hate us to lose Raya, even though, you know, Kepa's a hell of a number 2. You know, I think we're the best team in the league, and that is genuinely an objective opinion. It is not me as a dyed-in-the-wool Gooner. I think if Manchester City make a couple of signings, they might well run it closer than I would like. But let's face it, if you take their centre forward out of the side, where would they be? I can't see anybody challenging. Chelsea is more concerned with their balancing the books or selling themselves items that they own than they are of challenging anybody. Liverpool would be a tough game, but I mean, it's been a disappointing season for them. And they've gone from being, as Carragher said, the team of all the talents to, well, against us, a team without a striker, unless Ekitike is fit. I think we're going to win it. I genuinely do. I mean, this is the best side I've seen since Wenger's Invincibles.
Well, the bookies concur. But Tony, you've seen a few Arsenal titles in your time. Is this a title-winning team we are watching?
Yeah, I go along with what Steve said. It is an excellent side. The business of these narrow games reminds me a bit of 1971. 1970, we were unstoppable leading up to Christmas. And then things started to become much more nerve-wracking in the new year. And although we did have some clear wins, I can remember a 3-0 win at Wolverhampton, but there were a lot of very narrow victories. And as we all seem to agree, Arsenal are quite good at that sort of thing and putting their fans through the ringer. But no, this is a very good side. It's a typical Arteta side in which the goals are coming from all sorts of different people. And the only way that other teams will stop us is by fouling and cheating, isn't it? This is a really good team.
Also, Tony, I think this year we haven't had the horrors from VAR and these sendings off that we had. I mean, Rice's dismissal for kicking a ball 2 yards away from himself, for example.
Yes.
We have mercifully escaped those. I mean, who knows what the next match will bring? But long may that continue, because some of the decisions made last season, and I don't think, to be honest, we would have won it last year. I think we would have been closer, but we were most unfortunate with some of the decisions without squealing poor old Arsenal. I mean, some of them were just inane.
Yeah, they were, weren't they? And they would not have been sendings off again with other teams.
Well, they changed the rule after about 6 weeks, once they'd sent off a couple of Arsenal players for it. But there we are. So, Peter, we do have to go to Manchester City. So, okay, you've got a 6-point margin. Let's take a scenario whereby City could win at home against Arsenal. It's not out of the question. They could well buy Gueye. They could well buy Semenyo. Are you concerned, or do you think we're actually looking good for that run of 18 matches?
Well, the first, I mean, we've all lived through lots of Arsenal, title wins, and the thing about them all is, however good the side, I used to worry about the Invincibles. I worried when we were 1-0 down at home to Leicester in the last game that we might not become invincible, and Leicester were already relegated. Um, but there's always that angst, and you can feel it, in the ground. You can feel it when the other team get a corner. There's so much pent up sort of frustration and hurt because we haven't won it for a while, and that's our big concern. Um, but I agree totally with what Steve said. This is the best squad Arsenal have ever had, and they've certainly got enormous strength in depth. But there are always going to be key players. I think the interesting thing is City have lost both their two centre halves today for a long period of time. Whether they signed Guehi or not, I don't know. He's a very good player, but I have friends at Palace who tell me that there's a gentleman's agreement that he's going to leave at the end of the season. We'll see about that. Who knows? I can't imagine Palace would say no to 50 million quid if he's going to walk away at the end of the season. But City have got to play a lot of very difficult sides away from home. We've played almost all the top sides away from home already. So the big problem for us is going to be these low blocks teams. I mean, who would have thought we'd have the problem we had with Wolves? I thought that was an absolute gimme, but we nearly made a real cock up of that one. And sides are going to come to Arsenal who are fighting relegation. We're bound to get some eccentric decisions from eccentric referees. We're bound to get some bad luck, and we're bound to get some injuries. But so strong is the squad, and so well coached are they, that I think by the law of averages we should win because we are the best. We are the best team, and we're certainly the best squad in the league this season.
I would add, albeit possibly cynically, I think with the number of Christians we now have in the side, we may well have God on our side as well. And I particularly like Jesus's vest. I mean, my mum used to say sew and Cash's name tape into the back of my T-shirt, but he had "I belong to Jesus" on the front. I thought that was splendid.
Yeah. No, it is actually quite an interesting thing, isn't it? It's a very strong faith streak, isn't there, with a number of the lads who are there. But I think you'll find that that's true across a lot of the sort of, particularly the foreign players in the Premier League. It seems to be a strong feature, doesn't it? Rather like American football.
It was something you didn't see Story or Charlie George doing, certainly.
No, not publicly. Yeah.
Well, there we are. Let's not go down that road. But let's discuss a phenomenon which I kind of thought about earlier today. Quite a lot of sackings going on in the managerial world, and amongst others that have gone are Ruben Amorim at Manchester United. Now, it got me thinking, United won a lot of trophies in about a 22-year period under Sir Alex Ferguson. And a bit of me thought this is going to go on forever. And it's been delightful to have 10 years when they rarely have been in contention for the title, and they have fallen off their perch. Now, the game is about money. United do have money. Manchester City definitely have money. I'm interested in whether you think that football is cyclical, and once Pep Guardiola departs, and perhaps even before he departs, do you think Manchester City will continue to be competing at the top level and going for the title every season? Or do you think they could go through an experience a bit like United after Ferguson, whereby they're picking up the odd cup, they're still in theory a big team, they can still spend a lot of money, but it's not actually resulting in the big titles, the league title, the European Cup. Tony, I'm going to go to you first. What is your feeling? Is it possible that Manchester City will not dominate football for the next 20 years?
Whatever happened to those 115 charges? Is that the right number, or is it even more?
More
15.
It's more than that, and it's 2 years and 11 months since they were announced.
All right. So where is justice in that particular area? I saw it suggested recently that the government doesn't want to upset Saudi Arabia.
It's Abu Dhabi.
Right. So there may be some external pressure or something like that, but no, it seems to me that they don't really deserve to be where they are anyway. That's not to deny that Guardiola is a very good manager, very good coach.
He's always had pots of money, though.
Yeah, that must help quite a bit if you want to be good. But they were not a dominant side, a dominant force before he appeared, and the oil money came. They were, of course, a long time ago, in the 1930s. They're a very strong side. So I think I take up your point about football being cyclic. There are periods in history where one team does seem to have everything going for it, and then it fades and somebody else takes over. So I would go along with that. And therefore, I guess that also means that City could become a much less influential club, and somebody else takes their place.
Okay. Peter, let's have your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't get too deeply into the 115 charges or whatever, but it does seem incredible to me that Nottingham Forest and Leicester and Everton get sanctioned in the same season that, the charges were there and were immediately docked points. And City have got this incredible, sort of asterisk hanging over everything that they've done, and it could affect, it would have a significant effect on a number of seasons if they've been sanctioned in that particular season. Now, they deny all charges, they may be totally innocent, but if they're not, then there's this very strong possibility that if they do get charged, that Guardiola will leave, it's even feasible they could be relegated. Haaland won't want to play in the Championship, and the team could break up. So there's a real that's one possibility. But I think the likelihood that Guardiola will leave, people are saying that he'll be replaced by Maresca. Well, if he's replaced by Maresca, I'd take that every day of the week. Thank you very much, because he's nowhere near as good a manager as Guardiola is. So, I mean, the one that will worry me is with his links with Manchester City will be if they try to get hold of Mikel Arteta, who I think is clearly the best coach in the Premier League at the moment. But I think Arteta really has got a project that he's deeply in love with at Arsenal, and there's he's got conditions of work that suit him very well. But I think that the football is cyclical, and that's one of the things that makes it very interesting. And what it also does show, even though we hated him at the time, what a great manager Ferguson was, because he was able to reinvent himself and reinvent Manchester United over a very long period of time. And the way they fell away afterwards just indicated, how significant was his personal input. They've never got close to replicating that afterwards, even though they've had umpteen so-called superstar managers, have they?
No. And that's interesting again, isn't it, with cyclical, because very, very similar things happened to United when Busby retired.
Exactly as I was about to say.
They made the same mistake then of letting Busby have some influence behind the scenes. so that whoever they appointed to replace him didn't really feel that they were in charge.
Mm, mm.
And that's the same thing with Ferguson.
I mean, there was a thing with that happened with Wenger. I mean, we all got huge regard for Wenger, but there was no doubt that and it may have been the circumstances and having less money to spend. There was no doubt that in the last 5-6 years of Wenger's tenure, he declined in effectiveness as a manager. Yes. I don't think there's any doubt about that. We owe him an enormous debt of gratitude for all that he did. And when he came to the club, he was a breath of fresh air and his ideas were brilliant. That never seemed to happen in the same way with Ferguson. He seemed to be able to sustain himself brilliantly, possibly because he kept changing the people around him on a regular basis. But he kept it very fresh. But a manager like Mourinho came in and certainly bullied Wenger's teams. But Mourinho is going through that process now of declining as a force. Nobody would take Mourinho seriously as a top manager now, would they?
No.
Steve, any thoughts to add to this?
Nothing's forever. Teams come, teams go. Those poor souls up at the other end of the Seven Sisters Road have waited since 1961, and certainly Tony's point about Man United after Busby, Ferguson hung around, Manchester City post. I think the moment the current boss goes, I think that they're going to be struggling because no one is going to do as well. And let's face it, was it Preston North End were invincibles many moons ago with the Preston? And you look at all those sides. Nothing is forever. Our great years were the 30s. Our biggest regret is that we've never actually built a dynasty in the way that Liverpool or Manchester United have subsequently. I think Manchester City, there are too many whiffs of corruption to my mind for me to actually applaud them as I would Liverpool and Ferguson's. Although I didn't like Ferguson, as you said, none of us did. These phases are dependent on a lot of luck, a lot of good young players coming through, and an able guy at the helm. And to my mind, I'm just thankful we've got Arteta there. And with the backup, bringing in people like Heinz, the guy that's doing the scouting the negotiation of the director of football, I think these are massive pluses. And I can see us for the next 5, 6, 7 years being a power. And that's something that I've never seen at Arsenal. I'm very positive about it, but it's not going to be forever. Mind you, if it is for 5, 6, 7 years, we'll all be in our dotage, present company accepted with you, Kev, and we'll be gazing out the window somewhere. But I think it's happy days.
Well, I hope you're all compliments mentis for many to come. The other thing just to mention is that it is a shame the European Cup did not exist in the 1930s. Because I wonder if Arsenal might have put together a little run like Real Madrid did in the late 50s and, really establish something. And of course, World War II didn't help our prospects of building a dynasty there. But we certainly had our moment in the sun in the 30s, where Herbert Chapman obviously wasn't around for a lot of it, but the work he did was continued and we were successful even without Herbert Chapman. So it was a wonderful period for those that were around to enjoy it. Tony.
Chapman was very successful at Huddersfield, of course.
Yeah,
before he came to us.
Possibly, arguably the finest manager this country.
Yeah. I don't think the other people we've talked about have had success at 2 different clubs like that. He was a really quite extraordinary man. And then, of course, very sadly died. It was pneumonia, wasn't it?
Well, he went to,
which he probably wouldn't have died from now.
He went to watch a reserve game, didn't he, on the south?
Yeah, yes. Around this time of the year.
Well, a treble championship winning side with Huddersfield and another one with Arsenal. I mean, nobody's done that, have they?
No.
And in fairness, he didn't have the finances behind him that some of the big clubs have got today. Although we did spend some money.
He was visionary enough to see what could be done in London.
Yes.
I mean, the football success up to that point was all up in the north. That's where like Huddersfield. But he could see something could be done in London, and he did it.
Yep, absolutely. Going to do a quick yes or no question now, and just gut instinct from you people. I'm going to ask you to picture August 2026. I'm going to take you to White Hart Lane, and I'm going to ask you, is Thomas Frank going to be the Spurs manager in August? Yes or no? One word answer. Just give me a gut instinct. I'm going to start with Peter.
No.
Steve?
Yes.
And Tony?
Yes.
Interesting. 2 yeses to Thomas Frank. So who knows? He might get some success. They're in the Europa League, aren't they? I think that was the sell. That didn't save Ange, but let's see what they do.
No, they're in the Champions League.
Are they supposed to champions? Oh, of course they are. Yes, I forgot that.
Yeah, they're in the Champions League. And well, I don't know if they qualified for the last bit definitely yet, but they're still in it. Yeah.
It's difficult to get knocked out of that league phase. Yeah, I think all 6 Premier League teams will get through. Talking of cups, though, January is an interesting month because we do have 4 cup matches to play. 2 of them are Champions League, away to Inter and at home to Kairat Almaty. And I'd advise anyone who's thinking of not going to that to get their ticket, who's a season ticket holder, to put their ticket on Ticket Exchange very soon, because I have a feeling they won't sell nearer the time of the game. And if it does, I'll be amazed, but you never know. Strange things have happened. The worst thing is it's a grade B game, so the prices aren't cheap. I wonder if the club could do something special.
At least it's not away.
So it's not away yet. Well, we might not have gone. I don't know. But anyway, also got, of course, the first leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final at Chelsea, and we're visiting Portsmouth on Sunday. Now, Mikel Arteta, in these games, he's been known to play stronger teams than perhaps other managers might. I mean, obviously, Portsmouth is not a particularly challenging fixture. You would imagine to see the kind of team that would turn out in the earlier round of the Carabao Cup for that one. But Chelsea away in the League Cup, Inter away in the Champions League. What do you want Arteta to do in these matches? Do you want him to effectively weaken Arsenal's chances by saying, I'm not prepared to play everybody. I've got my priorities. We've qualified we're going to be top 2 in the group of the Champions League. It doesn't matter what we do against Inter. We'll beat Kairat Almaty. We will be in the top 2. In terms of the League Cup, maybe a bit of a different feeling. You know, we might want to actually try and put out a strong team for that. Basically, would you go strong in these cup games, stronger than, perhaps another manager would choose to, like, think of Liverpool, for example. They often play weaker teams in these domestic cups for starters. Is it time for rotation? Start with Steve.
Inter are not ripping up trees. I think we can, give Declan a rest there. We've got the guys coming back now, so long as there's no horror stories. When was the last time we conceded 3 goals against anybody? Off the top of my head. No, because thinking about Chelsea away, if we lose 2-1, with putting some of the guys in, Hincapié, whoever, Lewis Skelly, I still think we'll beat them at home. I would I'd be fairly relaxed about the things. I mean, I think the home game against Chelsea, providing we haven't had a disaster, you know, there's enough good players there. Ben White, he's not going to let anybody down. He's a top footballer. You know, Norgard, we haven't seen much of him, but he looks as though he knows his stuff. Young Nwaneri, we could do with at least giving him a bit of football if he's not going to go out in loan, and I'd rather he didn't. You know, I think we've got enough. I think we've got enough to take care of that and save the big guns for the big ones.
Peter, are you expecting to see Bukayo Saka play in these matches?
Well, I think you know, the point about the Champions League, we're through in the Champions League. We don't really want to go to Milan and lose, but it's not going to be a particularly significant thing if we do, and we should beat Pirate, whatever they're called, Almaty, at home anyway. With whatever team, we can probably get a number of people out the, you know, sort of the Gunners Tavern and give them a game, I would have thought. But the biggest the biggest and Portsmouth in the Cup, we should certainly play, as you say, the sort of side that we played at Port Vale in the Carabao. I mean, half the Portsmouth side are injured at the moment. The difficult one, it's a London derby. There's going to be a lot of bragging rights, and it's a piece of silverware. I mean, Jamie Redknapp said the other day, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually agree with what he said after the Bournemouth game, that could be a very significant game, because if Arsenal do win silverware early in the season, that could have a tremendous knock-on effect in terms of the confidence. It takes a bit of pressure off Arteta. There are people out there who are saying if Arteta doesn't win a trophy this year, he's finished. I mean, they must be absolutely mad in my view. But there are people
Gary
out
Neville.
there. Yeah, there are people out there who are saying that, and I think that you're, you know, I agree with Steve. We should get through against Chelsea, and we've got a squad. You know, we've got rotation options like Madueke and Martinelli and Nwaneri and Havertz coming back. I mean, half the team seem to have played for Chelsea in the first place anyway, don't they? And Kepa. So they're all going to be quite motivated to play against Chelsea. But I think we will prioritise of those games. Chelsea Champions League games will be very low priority, and I think we will go with a Carabao side. It's a pity that Max Dowman isn't fit, because it would be lovely to give him an opportunity to play in one or two of these games where there isn't too much pressure. But I think Max is likely to be up for a little bit longer, isn't he? So
that's my understanding. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Tony, how are you feeling about watching reserves?
Yes, as Peter's just said, the bragging rights come into it. And you don't really want to lose games, do you? Because the players don't want to get into that sort of mindset. So the challenge is to keep everybody happy and to avoid serious injury problems. So yes, I think the Chelsea one is probably the one to concentrate on. But there's still, is it Liverpool and Manchester City, the other semi-final?
Newcastle and Man City, yeah.
Newcastle.
Yeah.
So it's not even beating Chelsea doesn't guarantee the cup, but it's obviously an essential step towards that.
Okay. All right. Well, we've been going for over an hour, so I am going to say thank you so much to my three guests. They're all first-timers on the podcast. And I will have you all back, although I will be mixing you in with some younger blood, because we have a rotation policy on this podcast. I mix them up.
Young whippersnappers, eh?
Yeah.
We'll get down with the youth.
They might not get some of your references to the, shall we say, earlier years of.
One thing before we part, Kev, I think we just, you know, I wrote down that. One thing we have endured, looking at the present squad, we don't have to worry about someone like Igor Stepanov's stripping off and the substitute things.
Yes.
Although Igor was there, I believe, in the 2001-2002 season when we won the double and made a few appearances and We got away with it, I think. We can concur on that. So,
Thanks, guys.
yes, once again, thank you, gentlemen. I am going to say to our listeners, we will be back on Thursday, the 22nd. That's when we'll record the next one. So it'll be available on Friday, 23rd January, when we'll have played some of these cup matches. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode, a trip down memory lane. And thanks again to all.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kevin.
Is it good?